Okay, so today we're going to kind of dive into uh, something that might surprise some folks.
Mm-hmm.
How America keeps up its, high standard of living.
Yeah.
We've got some material here outlining like all the economic and political stuff that's going on.
Right.
And our mission today is to understand all that and how it plays out globally.
Exactly.
So, hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better grasp on some of these big international dynamics.
Absolutely.
We're talking everything from like the dollar's role in the world to, trade policies
Oh,
and
yeah, all sorts of
all the
things.
stuff in between.
Yeah, the stuff that, really makes the world tick. It's
Exactly.
a web, it's a web of interconnected stuff.
Yeah,
Economic and political strategies.
is.
And
Yeah,
it's fascinating how these work together to, support a certain level of prosperity in the US.
yeah, and that's what we're going to unpack.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's kick things off with this whole dollar hegemony thing. So the material is basically saying that because the U.S. dollar is like the main reserve currency
Right.
worldwide,
Right.
America can basically just print money and like export inflation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like imagine if you could just print money and everyone wanted it.
Right.
It helps keep the value up, even when you're making more of it.
Yeah, it's like a subtle transfer, right,
Yeah.
of economic burden to all those other countries holding those dollars.
Exactly.
Fascinating stuff.
So then the material goes on to talk about how the U.S. has so much sway in institutions like the IMF and the World Bank,
Oh, absolutely.
and that lets them shape global economic policies
Hmm.
and often in ways that like keep the dollar in that central role.
Yeah, it's about maintaining that system that benefits them,
Right. These are
reinforcing that position.
yeah. And then we get into economic sanctions, which are like a huge geopolitical weapon.
Big time.
This affects, a huge chunk of the world's population.
Yeah, you're talking about a tool that can really put the squeeze on economic competitors.
It's serious stuff.
Yeah, restricting access to finance and trade.
Exactly.
It's a powerful lever to pull.
So then the sources get into this whole thing about technological monopoly.
Right.
They're saying the U.S. stays ahead through these restrictive practices.
Yeah, think about like cutting edge chips.
Right.
The US might control who gets that technology
Yeah.
that can slow down other countries trying to develop their own stuff.
It's interesting because it's like promoting innovation at home,
Yeah.
but maybe slowing it down globally.
It's a tricky balance.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is resource exploitation.
Okay.
The material is suggesting that American corporations often get resources from developing nations on terms that are
Not so great for those nations.
not so great. No,
Cheaper inputs for the US though, right?
right. It all feeds back into lower costs for American consumers.
It all ties together.
It does, yeah.
It's the foundation of that standard of living.
And then there's this whole history of trade policies,
Mhm.
like the open door policy,
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
which was all about making sure America could sell its goods in foreign markets.
It's about keeping those channels open.
Yeah, long-term strategy.
For sure.
And then there's the military interventions.
Right.
The sources are saying that the U.S. has used military force to protect its economic interests abroad.
Especially in places with lots of resources.
Exactly, like a direct connection between.
Security and economics.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's like they're saying that getting those resources
Hmm.
is a key driver.
Oh, yeah, it's a big part of the equation.
And then finally we get to this idea of neocolonialism.
Okay.
It's about having influence over other nations without actually like ruling them directly.
Right. So instead of taking over a country,
Yeah.
you might use trade agreements that really favor American businesses.
Yeah.
And that shapes their economy.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. It's leverage.
It is.
Economic and political leverage. To guide other nations in a direction that,
That benefits the U.S.
yeah,
Okay, so when we like zoom out and look at the big picture,
yeah,
it seems like all these things are connected
they are.
and they all help to funnel cheaper goods and resources into the U.S.
It's a system.
Yeah,
It really is a system.
which helps keep consumption high and keeps the standard of living high.
Right. And it makes you think about the relationship between
Yeah.
national prosperity
And how other nations develop.
Exactly, because it's all interconnected.
It is.
It really makes you think
It does.
about the balance,
Yeah, yeah.
between taking care of your own and
And the impact on everyone else.
exactly. It's a big question
It is. It's a big question.
for all of us to consider.
Yeah, that's something to think about for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.